We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
E-A-T-L-E-S Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes! Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Well, welcome in. We're going to start with hockey. It's hockey action. We got hockey action. It's Saturday morning. It's episode 175 of Drunk on the Ice. But, Mark, if you would have told me the last time we recorded that something as big as what happened this week dropped, I would have gone and played the lottery because I would have thought we were all fucking nuts. But it was what a hell of a week, man. What a hell of a week. And all I gotta say is a guy that we had been enamored with and were enticed by the idea of, I'm gonna just call him that guy, playing with Mitchkov and the stars aligning and those guys meeting right in the same, fuck him. I don't have any other words, man. It was just I don't know, man. I'm excited about the way that the team responded. It was a uniform response, and I love that it has pangs of old Flyers, but with a new age kind of spin. And it was basically some of the quotes, especially from Jonesy, basically, if you don't want to be here, fuck you. You're out. We don't want you. And you got that kind of uniform response from the players, from the front office, that you don't want to be a Flyer? Great. Go to Siberia and have fun playing in Anaheim, where nothing matters. And the bullshit excuse of you having an organization with GM experience. The guy that's there doesn't have much more experience than Danny Briere. So, the entitled athlete of, I'm not going to meet with you. We're going to send a team from the Flyers to travel to Sweden, and I'm going to refuse to meet with you. And we're going to come up to BC, and you're going to send your coach out to talk to guys that have logged more time on NHL toilets than you have on NHL ice. And you're going to refuse to meet with them?
Yeah.
You can go kick rocks, because when that day happens, when he shows up at an NHL rink and they're playing the Flyers, I don't care if it's even in Anaheim. You better believe that there's going to be a whole lot of Flyers people there to boo the hell out of them. And you saw it a little bit last night, because there's a whole contingent of people dressed up in Flyers gear that showed up at his BC game.
Yeah, how about that? That was wild.
Oh, Mark, talk to me.
Oh man. Go back to the the night it broke. I mean, there was a hockey game that night, which is there was actual hockey game. And Flyers Penguins, if you haven't heard. little bit of a rivalry there, playoff implications and things like that. And this news comes down, and I said this to Mike on Fired Up when we did our like instant reaction show
Right.
after it happened. Was like I saw that news come across my Twitter. My Twitter feed came from the team, like, and then I'm going to Facebook and Instagram. I'm trying, like, I thought I was getting worked. Like,
Yo, to be honest, I had the same reaction. I'm like,
yeah,
is this some kind of bullshit spoofy account? Like, what? They would never
yeah.
trade this fucking dude.
I had
And
to
then I
go
was
back.
like, oh shit. It's actual, like, it's actual news. Like, it's the actual Flyers account.
Yeah. And I was stunned by that news. And then it started to trickle out a little bit around that time from a lot of the national guys that Cutter Gauthier had informed the Flyers that he did not want to, that he would not sign here when it was time to sign. And then it's crazy because I've seen Cutter play a little bit. I don't watch a lot of BC or BU games or anything like that, BC games. Not even when he was there. I don't watch a lot of college hockey in general, other than like maybe a few games of the Frozen Four. But I did watch him at the World Junior Classic, and I did watch him at the World Championships over this last summer for Team USA. And tantalized by his skill set, but had no idea that any of this was going on behind closed doors, which I think is a testament to the job that Briere, Jones, now that I believe the chairman of the team, I think he's the chairman, Dan Hilferty,
Yeah.
to kind of keep that under wraps, because this had gone back to the summertime. They had these issues with him going back to the summertime. And the fact that none of us heard anything, there wasn't a rumor, there wasn't one iota of a rumor out there about
Nope.
whether or not he was happy with this situation or anything like that. Usually that stuff trickles out at some point. Somebody gets a hold of something like that. There was none of that.
Because there's a lot of Flyers people that are tied, that are like deeply tied in. Guys that have broken stories, the guys from Snow the Goalie, the Spit and Chick, like you know that there are guys that have national voices that are tied in. That's that new age Flyers thing that I'm really impressed by.
Yeah. And, that news comes down, and I was stunned, shocked. And then I think it was because I knew who Jamie Drysdale was already, that I was like, oh man, like this kid's really, really good. It's not like, which there's been a little bit of that online, where there's been a lot of emphasis on the Flyers losing Cutter Gauthier, but not enough credit being lent to the fact that they got a potential top pair right shot defenseman, which is like you have a better chance of seeing a unicorn walk down the street than finding a player like that.
I was just gonna say, like I've heard that exact phrase used, that like that guy at that position with that kind of shot and all the whole skill set that goes with it. Unicorn is the guy that is, so like in my mind, you checked off one of your boxes.
Right.
That was a guy you had to get. Is that a guy I wanted to see because the ceiling seemed so high? Like the ceiling seemed on Gauthier that it was a guy that could be a top of the league scoring asset on your team. Yeah. But you're getting a guy that's impacting your roster right now.
Right. And so I was incredibly excited about Jamie Drysdale coming in, and he fits a lot of – the Flyers have multiple needs organizationally. Like Cutter Gauthier was a center wing, but there wasn't really the idea. We weren't really sure if what he was going to play at, what position he was going to play at the next level, rather. And when you look at how he fits into the Ducks plan, who he says he's going to sign with, they already have Leo Carlson and Trevor Zegras down the middle. I don't know that they'll see him as a center. He'll probably do a lot of damage playing on one of their wings. I mean, but I can't really be upset with what the Flyers got in return for a player that made it very clear that he did not want to be here. And it's still kind of one of those things where, you know, there's going to be questions. This is going to follow him his entire career.
Oh yeah.
The way this was handled, the Flyers were there was a very unified front by the Flyers.
Yeah.
And it was really great to see that they kind of jumped out in front of it. Gautier's kind of beat around the bush. His camp's they're saying they're not going to speak about it, but then they're kind of saying other things like, oh, well, we didn't like the way things were going and whatever the case. But, you know, I really, if you were on the fence about Danny Briere as the GM of this team, this kind of quelled any kind of concerns I had, because this is the second time that he has taken a player, a perceived malcontent player, and has turned it into something that has been a positive, like a net positive for the Flyers. It was this one, and then I think back to the summer when he made that really intricate trade to bring trade Ivan Provorov to Columbus, who was clearly not happy here, and then pick up Sean Walker, get another first round pick. Like there was he did a really, really nice job here. Really nice job.
He's making moves and keeping everything behind closed doors, which is like nowadays with technology, it's almost impossible to do. So like, I'm impressed. Like you also heard, this is again, one of the other things that came out was like the fact that they had Michkov at their facility for days, playing basically pond hockey with his buddies, just like hanging out to just kind of get a sense of who he was. But no one knew. No one had any idea. And this, like, it's not cloak and dagger, right? But it's you're operating in this very stealthily way where you're able to get these deals done and create these assets for this team moving forward. And the timeline is kind of they've made it clear that they're staying put on that timeline of like not pushing too hard, too fast. But Mark, they're gonna fuck around and make the playoffs. like they're the last I saw this morning, I'm pretty sure I saw they were 4 points out of the top of the Metropolitan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, you're talking about, you know, teams that are really impressive, and you're hanging with them. And some of the play that you're seeing on the ice, man, really, really impressive about what you're getting out. And I gotta say, like, I gotta eat crow on the stance that I had with Tortorella, because I was very hard and fast that like Tortorella was the wrong guy at this time because he's winning games that you shouldn't win. But what I missed in all that was the culture that he was creating and the accountability that you're going to need when this team actually turns around. And you could see a timeline where he moves into a front office role and someone else slides in. But for right now, he's getting really, really good production out of guys on this roster. I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed about what they got back. So, like, talk about the guy. Talk about Drysdale and the guy that they got back, and the pool of assets that's coming with the addition of the draft pick and what that adds to that pool of assets they got, you know, in that war chest.
Yeah, sure. You know, Jamie Drysdale has been a player. It's one of those things too where I think he's at that weird point in his kind of like league-wide perception of him. He was drafted. He was one of those kids that was drafted in the pandemic year. and that changed a lot of things. And then there were some injuries there, a lot of injuries actually. He had he had a hard time staying on the ice, and I think comparatively speaking, when we think about where like who he was traded for, it's kind of like one of those things where there's kind of more out there on Jamie Drysdale, so people feel like they have more of an idea of what he is and what he isn't. Whereas like Cutter is kind of he's not a player without his own flaws. He's got really, really interesting scoring ability, like really intriguing scoring ability, but there's other parts of his game that are kind of lacking and lack polish. So, but as far as like Jamie Drysdale goes, I mean, when you think about the hockey sense, the skating is otherworldly. I mean, this kid's really, really good. For directional skating ability, could turn and pivot on a dime. He's already added a layer of dimension to a Flyers power play that lacked it.
Yeah.
And he's surprisingly physical. Is committed to competing in his own end of the rink, which I think sometimes the perception of guys that have like those offensive abilities is that they're lackluster in the defensive zone. He's made some mistakes coverage wise, but that's to be expected. He's still learning the systems play and playing off of guys and things like that. I'm sure that'll improve as the season goes along, but really, really just you can tell that he's just naturally gifted. He's naturally gifted with the puck on his stick. And as he gets more comfortable, I think that we're really going to see this, like John Tortorella was calling him a rover when they acquired him. And he kind of used the same terminology when he was in Columbus to describe Zach Werenski, who was their best defenseman. So I think he was going to treat him the same way, seems so like side. It seems so not like John Tortorella, but he's going to let this kid kind of create and flourish on his own without there being like over the top hard coaching on him. They're going to let him kind of do his thing and play to his strengths. And they're basically telling him to go out there and, hey, like, do what you do. And
yeah, what was the quote? The quote from Tortorella was like, "I can teach him to play defense. Like we'll figure we'll figure all that stuff out. Like the way that I've seen him, and I'm trying to watch him like specifically, the way that he is able to navigate on the ice. Like there's been some times on the power play where he is like just riding the blue line, like he's riding that line." Yeah. And be able to navigate side to side, the way that he's able to navigate and distribute the puck from the point, like just really impressive. And I think the thing that's standing out and the reason why it's standing out is because of how lackluster that area of this team has been and how much he's brought to that. Right. And he's already got, he's got his blueprint all over this power play.
Yeah. And I mean, going into tonight, the Flyers play tonight in Winnipeg. And going into the night, the Flyers have, I think, a power play goal in 3 straight games. And Jamie Drysdale has been the power play quarterback for 2 of those games. So it's not like
in 2 games, he's got 2 assists. One of them is the power play assist, 2 points, 3 shots on goal. But he is, in those games, he's got the most ice time out of all their defensive players.
Yeah.
And he's logged almost 42 minutes of play. Like that to me screams of like, we've got faith in him and we understand the skill level that he is bringing to this unit.
Yeah. And, as the Flyers kind of, since he's been here, the Flyers have played 2 overtime games. 3-on-3 overtime games, and that's really where kind of some of his best assets shine. His very first game with the team, he made a pass to Morgan Frost against Montreal in overtime.
Oh, it was filthy.
I mean,
talk about that for a second. Like that was filthy.
Yeah, really unbelievable vision, head up all the way. And I mean, just it was like, to kind of steal the phraseology. I mean, it was like a beautiful tight spiral. That puck was
Oh,
right on the blade, and I think I had said on Twitter, I was like, if Morgan Frost finishes that playoff, that place goes. The Wells Fargo comes unglued. If they would have won the game right there.
they are legit putting the roof back together.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
it is wild.
that place would have went crazy. But that's just like a glimpse of things he can bring on a regular basis to a team that really, really needs it. And provided he stays healthy, I think that the Flyers are going to be Cutter Gauthier is still going to go on. He's going to be a good NHLer, Cutter Gauthier. And
Oh yeah.
he may have a 10-cent head on his shoulders, but he's going to be a good player. And
I mean, listen, Mark, it is the modern day equivalent of exactly what happened in this city with the Phillies all those years ago with JD Drew,
yes,
right?
yeah.
The impression that he got about this organization before he even stepped foot in the organization was that I don't want to be a part of it. And it's just, to me, I can't wrap my head around it. And I tried with this situation to take the hometown goggles off and really try to look at it. And I'm going, okay, what either something really, really weird happened, or like you're just like, yeah, I don't feel like it. And
Yeah.
and the weird thing is like the impression that he gave the team before that draft was that he was like, this is my town. This is a city I can play in. And
Yeah.
I'm looking at that going, I'm looking at the character of the guy now and
Yeah.
going, you had the opportunity to be the face of this franchise for a decade. Like
Yeah.
you could have been what Claude Giroux was for this team alongside Mitchkov,
Yeah.
right? You and Mitchkov be like 1A, 1B because their skill levels are so high that you could be a lead the league in scoring and I might be going a little bit extreme here, but like the type of production that you get from McDavid and Draisaitl, right?
Hmm.
You're getting the top end of the league scoring. You had the opportunity to be that guy and be the face of the franchise, and you essentially said, "I think I'd rather go be in Anaheim." Now I'm like, great. We got out of this way before we got deep into this, and we figured out he wasn't going to be the guy. Good, we moved on.
Yeah.
And the quotes coming out about it's not that it came out, but like the thing that came out, the Jamie Dress, his post game quote,
Yes,
about what it's like to play in a city like this.
yeah. And I'm sure it meant a lot to him. I'm sure getting traded is always shocking, but I mean, the Flyers flew his parents out to see his first game, and those are the kinds of things, like as you had said at the top of the show, that back in the Ed Snyder regime and things like that, that was one thing that, and I think Dan Hilferty deserves a ton of credit for this, is that like he's down there shaking hands with the players and things like that. This was a player's paradise here. To play for the Flyers, it was like, if you come and play for this organization, you could be a part of this for the rest of your life. As you could see by the team's alumni, that they have alumni games regularly throughout the year. A lot of the guys come back and play and enjoy their time together because they all have that commonality of being a Philadelphia Flyer. And and it's, that goes back to the Snyder days, but I think Dan Hilferty really he gets that. And I'm sure that meant the world to that kid to have his mom and dad there to see him play for his brand new team, right, and to see them win in a shootout and have him be a part of it and get on the board and to see how the crowd reacted to him every time he touched the puck. I'm sure that was like, wow, man, like they really love me here. And it's because of what happened. But to go back to the Cutter thing, I think the thing that really kind of mystified me about this entire thing was that I actually don't even really blame Cutter if he was looking at this from afar this time last year. I can see how he could turn around and be like, whoa, like this looks like a mess. The thing is that kind of stumps me about this whole thing is that he never picked up a phone. He never, like, there's just certain things that you should expect from a top NHL prospect. Like when the general manager of your team gives you a call, pick up the phone, you know, like that kind of thing.
And we're not talking about guys that don't have NHL credentials. Like
Danny
we're
Briere,
like we are talking about guys who have cemented their legacy and put their handprints all over this game for more than a decade.
yeah,
and you're gonna be like, talk to my college coach.
yeah.
Like
Danny
to me, I'm going, fuck you. Like
Briere,
I think we got out before we got deep.
right?
And before we realized that this dude was as soft. He might be talented, but when I look at your character, everything about you says I'm soft. I'm here for the idea of playing in the NHL, but not there.
Yeah. I mean, to like think about that, Keith Jones is like beloved in hockey circles. He's been in the broadcast community for a long time. He has lots of connections around the league. I've never heard anybody say a bad thing about Jonesy. Danny Briere is like rarefied air in terms of like when you look at his career is all about perseverance. I mean, to be that size and to play as long as he did at the level that he did. You look at the playoff numbers, right? I mean, he had some legendary playoff runs in Philadelphia. 2010 comes to mind when the Flyers went to the Stanley Cup. I mean, he was a huge part of that. Like, this isn't like these guys aren't a couple of, dudes off the street with no experience.
Right.
And it's like one of those things where when that happens, it's like, yeah, that kind of tells me, and I wrote about this for Fired Up after they had traded for him, but the fact that those things were out there immediately about the lack of communication, not wanting to sit down and listen to a future plan or how you fit into that plan, all those things, that told me all I needed to know about your commitment. And as Jonesy said on the broadcast that night, if you don't want to be a Flyer, then you're not going to be a Flyer. And then to make the trade that they did. And I didn't touch on, I know that you asked me about the second round pick that game in the Jamie Drysdale trade, and which is what I'm now calling it. I'm not calling it the Cutter Gauthier trade. This is the Jamie Drysdale trade. They get the second round pick back, and they're always good to have. They're always good to have in your back pocket, whether you decide to go to the podium on draft day and use it, or you try to flip it in another trade to bring something that the team needs. That they're always just better to have in your back pocket than not have. So to get those two assets, and I would imagine, I believe it was the Ducks' second round pick in 2025 is what they ended up with. The Ducks are probably not going to be very good next year either. So that pick is going to be a little bit on the higher end, probably. So you might be able to get a prospect with it.
I'm on Puckopedia right now. Right in 2024, they're going to have the Florida first round pick, their first round pick. They're going to have the Columbus second round pick and their second round pick. So they're going to have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. And then they're going to have 3, 4. They're going to have 2 in round 5, 2 in round 6. Right. But then to go to 2025, you're going to have yours, and now you're going to have 2 seconds. Like you're building a good stockpile of those assets. Right. So if you feel like, you're in, and part of me feels like they're going to stand pat. Like I don't think that there's a huge move to make this trade deadline. There might be some moves, but like I said earlier, you're looking at a situation where when you look at you open up your social media today, you look at your NHL standings, and you're like, whoa. like you know that they've been playing well, but
Yeah.
to see them in that same air with some of these teams that are at the top of the like the top of the standings, like I'm going to pull up the playoffs just so I'm not misquoting anything, but like you're looking at you're 50 points. The Rangers have 54 and Carolina's got 51.
Yeah.
Like they are right in the mix in that Metropolitan to be. And I think the last time I saw their chances of making the playoffs are somewhere in like the high 70s,
Yeah.
77, some at 78%.
Yeah.
There is nothing better in this town than home playoff hockey.
Yeah.
Like it will rival Philly's Red October.
Yeah. And it's been
to
such
go in there with the orange t-shirts and the orange towels and the barn will be hopping.
Yeah.
And you can start getting your silver polish out. Maybe knock the dust off of the top of that. Like I'm just all in. I like I'm all in for like playoff hockey in this city is just it just hits differently.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets really rowdy here, especially when the city's behind the team or they believe in the team that they're legitimate. And it's the Metropolitan Division's a really tight race this year. So there's a lot of teams in it, and there's a lot of teams behind the Flyers that are also in the mix as well. So it's going to be nip and tuck for, I think, the rest of the year. But whether they make it or not, I mean, like, it's really, I think people really end like the takeaway this season will be like, this was a really fun year and they're close. And the group has been very, I mean, they erased a 2-goal deficit, win in overtime last night. I mean, they've been doing this stuff all year. And
that goal in OT was impressive.
Playing, and it was like, I think that was a sign of a good team. Yeah. Great tip by Joel Farabee in front. Great job by Igor Samula on the power play, another rookie. Get that puck on net, and and a good job by Cam Atkinson, who's really had a trying year, to cut to the net to draw that penalty, to try to create a scoring chance for himself. Gets hauled down. Flyers get a power play. They go on the ensuing power play and they win the game. And it just like, it's a sign. And I don't think they played their best last night, but I think that's a sign of a good team when you don't have your best stuff, much like an ace on the mound. You don't have his stuff today, but he's figuring out ways to get guys out. And it's a sign of a good team when you're not playing well, but you're finding ways to win. And they've been doing that all year. So, I mean, tonight's going to be a really good game tonight against Winnipeg. I mean, Winnipeg's very, very good. So,
yeah, I mean, listen, even more than a good team, it's a sign of good culture. Because we've said it a bunch of times on these shows that, like, if you're going to get a point from this team, you're going to earn it. You're going to earn every ounce of every point that you're going to get from this team. As far as players, before we jump out here, any players that are standing out? I got the guy that has impressed me the most in this last bit of stretches is Sam Aronson. Sam has been really, really impressive. And some of the stats, his last 13 starts, 9-2-2. Got a goals against just above 2.06. Save percentage, 9.24, 2 shutouts. Exactly what you want from a guy when you're trying to the production that you're trying to get when you're trying to spell your number one.
Yeah, he's he's in the middle of, and he's had a couple of these things this year. Sam Emerson's on an absolute heater right now, and
Right?
he is locked in. And I think the most impressive thing about Sam is, and I think a lot of people feel this way about him. He's undefeated this year in shootouts, and even
Ooh.
on breakaways. I mean, like, this guy is really, really tough to beat one-on-one. If you get in one-on-one with Sam Emerson, I mean, never ever bites first on the first move. He never seems like he's you got him flailing out there. He gets deked out of his pads. You know what I mean? You don't want to. It feels
Uh-huh.
like it's rare that you see that with him. And the fact that the Flyers have like this really, really strong goaltending tandem where it's really like a 1A, 1B thing. It's not even like a
Mhm.
starter backup thing. Has been really, really encouraging. I mean, goaltending is one of their biggest strengths, not just on this team, but organizationally. Like all throughout the board, the Flyers have prospects through North America, Russia. They have goaltending prospects everywhere, like legitimately good goaltending prospects.
Who was I was listening to? There was an episode. Oh God, who was it? It was Hunter Brody and Jason Martinez. And it's a really good episode for that. They're breaking down the trade, but they're also there's a segment in there where they're talking about Jason Martinez, who does an incredible job covering the Flyers.
He does.
Talks about their goalie pipeline and how it's at a point now where it's almost congested because they've got a lot of goalie talent and they're all real. There a lot of them are really good. He was talking about one of the guys in Russia who's got a goals against that's under one. Like just wild stuff. But that episode is really, really, it's short, but it's chocked full of really, really good information.
Yeah. Yeah, they really do. I mean, they have a couple Russian kids that are like legit starter potential goaltenders in the NHL. But to go back to the original question there, yeah, like I think somebody who's been like really impressive for me. I mean, I've been really happy with Joel Farabee's game this year.
Yeah.
He's been really, really good. I know he scored the game winner, so there might be a little bit of recency bias there, but he's played really well
Yeah.
for the majority of the season, and it's nice to see him get rewarded now with the points starting to come and start to pile up. They're putting him with Konechny and Couturier now on the top line, and they're a legitimate. Like I truly believe, like they're a legitimate top line in the league. It's not like, they're on the first line because they're on a weak Flyers team. Like this is a
Right.
good top line for anybody. And Farabee's been really impressive. I think his 5-on-5 play has been really, really strong this year.
Okay.
Which it's going to have to be because the Flyers power play has been, for a lack of a better word, it's been atrocious for most of the year. So they're not getting a lot of damage. They're not doing a lot of damage on that thing.
Right.
But I mean, so the goal's got to come somewhere at some point. But, Joel's been really impressive. I mean, Travis Konechny's going to the All-Star game again this year. What a year he's had to this point.
And my favorite clip, my favorite thing about him is he embodies the persona of this fan base.
He really does.
And the clip that went around the internet, the clip of him, I think it was at the end of that Flames game when
yes.
he used some really colorful language while he was talking to one of the Flames guys. Like, it's just, he said what everybody else was thinking. And I love that about him. He's been really impressive.
And he's just been like, I mean, like when you look at just like all around game, Travis Konechny's best assets are as a scorer. But I mean, John Tortorella was the one that decided to put him on the penalty kill. And the Flyers have a legitimately good penalty kill, one of the best in the league actually this year. And they scored lots of shorthanded goals. And Scott Lawton and Travis Konechny together have been like a really like, it's not almost like you have to worry about, running your power play, but you also have to like worry about them not making a mistake and them taking off
Right.
down the other end of the ring for an odd man chance or something like that. So, his game's really flourished the more that they've entrusted him with ice time and like, hey, like you're an
Right.
important part of what we do here. And, he's getting a reward. He deserves it. He deserves to go to the All-Star game again this year. I think nightly he's our best offensive player. He does a lot of really good things. And then he has that hallmark, like, mean streak in him for being a little player, and TK's small. But he doesn't back down from anybody. He's not afraid of anything.
No,
And,
not at all. And Mark, before we jump out of here, right? We normally try to, at some point, we've been touching base on some guys in the farm system a little bit. The guys that I want to talk about today, just for a couple of minutes,
Sure.
Oliver Bonk and Denver Barkley have guys that have been really, really productive where they're at. Barkley in 21 games with 39 assists, 60 points, and Bonk with 10 goals, 30 assists, 40 points. Like guys that are being really, really productive. Talk about them in that, because they're kind of their status now gets elevated in terms of where they rank in terms of the farm system assets.
Yeah, Denver Barkey's been really, really good since they've drafted him. He's another player like in a very like Travis Konechny type way.
True.
He's a small, undersized player, fearless, and plays like a Spitfire out there. He's very like and has the skill like to go along with it. He's an intriguing prospect, Denver Barkey, and underrated in terms of like, it's hard to say at this point in time that like it's his NHL future and where he fits is kind of murky, but he seems like one of those players that just as he gets older at every level, it's like, hey, like I don't know how he's doing it because he's like 5'2", but he's but at every level he's scoring. And some guys just do that. Briere, it's funny. Briere drafted him. Briere was one of those guys. He was a skill guy, smaller. And just like, it was like, he just keeps at every level he plays at, he just keeps finding ways to score. So Barkey's been really, really good. I don't think he made Team Canada's World Junior team this year, but I think he was an invite.
Okay.
I think he got invited to camp, which is usually a nod for a younger player that you're on their radar for the major tournaments. Oliver Bonk did make it, and I think he's projecting right now as like a really he's going to be an NHLer someday, and he's going to be a good one. I like his two-way game a lot. Another right-handed shot, and it's hard to get good righty shot D. So I'm really happy with Bonk so far. His game's very steady, and it just kind of seems like it's just steady upward trajectory at this point. And I think he's definitely going to be a pro, and he's probably going to contribute to the Flyers in the next couple of years here, which will be fun. It'll be fun to have another young D on the roster. So they're both really good prospects to this point.
I love it, man. I love it. Listen, we're gonna play. We'll play some commercials. We'll be back on the other side talking all things Sixers. So stick with us, and we'll be right back.
Von C Brewing Company is a 20-barrel, 16,000 square foot microbrewery with a 2,500 square foot tasting room, including a spacious outside beer gardens in Norristown, PA, in the heart of Montgomery County. The Von C family is part of the family that started C. Schmidt and Son Brewing in 1860. Stop in Wednesday through Sunday and taste a variety of draft and 16-ounce cans of originally brewed beer and tell them the Drunk on Broad crew sent you. Von C Brewing is located at 1210 Stenbridge Street, Suite 300 in Norristown. Cheers.
Team Clicks are the only glasses for real sports fans. With interchangeable arms, you can support all of your favorite teams, or even make and create custom options as well. These die-hard sports fans have realized that sports fans needed something other than face paint to show their love and passion for their teams. Go to teamclicks.com/DOB and show your love for your hometown team.
And La Torin's curated collection of men's and women's watches is a perfect investment that lasts for years to come and fits perfectly with your every outfit and style. Our range of classic watches aren't just a great perfect formal and casual accessory, but a time machine that takes you back to memories. Explore our collection of timeless watches that can reflect your taste, personality, and personal style. Our exclusive collection of carefully curated, affordable luxury watches is what you need to make a personalized style statement. You can take pride in your prized possession, handing it over to the next generations as your most loved asset that they can also own and display with the same pride. These high-quality pieces stand the test of time, giving exceptional value and return on your investment. Go to la-touraine.com and use code DOB at checkout and get 10% off.
If you're looking for unique sports apparel, check out Streaker Sports. They've dug deep into the archives and have brought back some incredible defunct team logos and have even created entire defunct league collections. They also have collections paying homage to sports culture, including the Miracle on Ice, Slap Shot, Caddyshack, the Mighty Ducks, and even have a license with Wiffle Ball and USA Hockey. Only for Drunk on Broad listeners, use code BROAD at checkout to get 10% off anything at streakersports.com. Again, that's 10% off anything at streakersports.com with discount code BROAD.
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup.
All right. Well, we're back talking all things Sixers. Woo! Good Lord. 7 out of 9 games without Joel Embiid.
Oh, yeah.
The news coming out with Ramona Shelburne that the injury is similar to the injury that he had last year. But kind of impressed to see how the team's playing without him. Talk to me about where you are in terms of where this team could be with Joel Embiid on the mend. Because last episode was that it was just the barrage of StatMuse stats that were beyond impressive.
Yeah.
From a guy who was just putting up numbers that had not been seen in this league before.
Yeah. You know, the Embiid thing's tough. Melbourne walked back a little bit of that after that Woj appearance, like on Woj's podcast, where there was kind of an insinuation, if I remember correctly, that this was related to, or at least she insinuated that. And then it was said after, oh, I'm not, that's not what I meant. Like, this is a separate issue. Either way, I'm kind of concerned about how long this has taken, which is, I think the Sixers at this point have kind of considered it just swelling. But I mean, that's a long time for your knee to be swelled up. You know?
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm kind of concerned about that. But, you know, it's been kind of a mixed bag without him. But last night looked as good as it's looked without him. I mean, that was actually probably a peak performance of, you know, and I guess I'm just going to assume that Tobias Harris listens to this show, because I mean, he really just balled out last night. I don't.
He was hot early.
Yeah.
You know, at one point he had 15 or 16 points while the rest of the team had 14. But really impressive performance from him last year. And we know that the biggest thing with Tobias is consistency,
Right.
right? Can you do that from game to game to game,
Yeah.
right? We know that he has this in his repertoire, but does he have it night after night after night when he gets elevated into that essentially that second scoring option?
It would be nice to just like to know that if, you know, if they went without Joel for any extended period of time, that they could just slide Tobias. I think if they knew that or were comfortable with that situation, had it played out that way,
Yeah.
that you knew that you could get a performance like this out of him, like somewhat
True.
of a regular kind of performance, because last night was it was a rough night for Maxi from shooting wise from the floor. I think he was 6
Yeah.
of 14 or something like that. It wasn't like one of his better nights. So they really needed to kind of get that scoring elsewhere. Even though Maxi, again, a sign of like just how great he's been this year, did a great job drawing defenders to him and all.
Right.
But I was really happy with, Tobias's game and his he had the ball a lot, but I mean, like even when he ended up in mismatches, sometimes he ends up in mismatches and he doesn't really seem all that interested in the mismatch. But a couple times he ended up like De'Aaron Fox ended up switching off on him, and he did a great job of, just using his size and his skill set to kind of get to the bucket to make get an easy layup or dunk. And he even had some good driving kicks too to the corners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was a good all around game. He had 3 steals, I think, in that game too. So, and then Nicholas Batum was in there doing all the little things that he normally does, and that help a team.
He's a guy that I love his game.
Yeah,
The pieces that they got back from that Harden deal are really paying off dividends in that second unit. And when he has to get elevated to the starting lineup, like the production that you're getting from Nick Batum, the production that you're getting from Marcus Morris, the production that you're getting, from a guy that they brought in the offseason and Pat Beverly, like you're getting a lot of that really deep bench production that you really haven't had in the last couple of years.
yeah, and it's been it's been a good it's been good for them. I mean, like to have that. The big concern is just like now, as it always kind of feels like it is, but it's just kind of like, hopefully Embiid's all right. Like, and hopefully this is not something that's
right.
A more serious issue than maybe they're leading on now or whatever the case may be. And I think too, it's like as long as he's good to go for the playoffs. I mean, that's kind of probably you have to have like somewhat of a long-term view of it. And the Sixers will still be in the mix for some of the, another piece, another like high-end piece leading into the trade deadline and things like that. So there's that element too. So they'll be good enough to stay afloat even without him. Especially if they could add another piece, then it becomes like the group kind of looks a little bit different without him, obviously, but they'll have enough talent to keep pace and then hopefully get Joel back for the playoffs.
Now,
for healthy Joel,
healthy Joel, right? In the last couple of weeks, right? You have the Toronto Raptors, right? They make the move with OG Anunoby,
yes,
and the pieces that they got back from New York. To me, that trade didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, in terms of like you basically swapped comparable assets. Do you read anything into maybe that there's another shoe to be dropped coming out of Toronto? Like, is there another move to be made with Siakam? Siakam's the guy that I got my eye on because I got the idea of pairing him and Embiid and Maxey. Even if you're able to move, you swap, expiring contracts with him and Tobias. just that's where my thought process is with Toronto. I'm looking at them going, okay, well, if they're going to move him, the likelihood is that they're going to move and try to get as much assets back because they don't want to let a guy like Siakam walk and not get anything back from him. And maybe that makes the trade value less, and maybe you're able to get him for not nearly as much as you would have, a year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, the Anunoby trade was weird. It was weird for the Knicks, like, to do that. And they trade like a young player, like, he's still relatively young, I think mid-20s.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
RJ Barrett's in that deal, and he goes home to Canada, Toronto, and but then, like, that was my first thought, like, when I saw that trade go through. Wasn't so much like, oh man, like, good for the Knicks as much as it was. I was like, you know what? I'm kind of interested in a Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett kind of mix, young, like, duo in Toronto. Like, that kind of seems like it could be fun. But yeah, Anunoby was, I mean, that was a big time, like, there was a lot of big pieces in that deal, like a lot of, like, kind of, I didn't think RJ Barrett, I mean, I guess he would have to be, like, to make money work and things like that and to get comparable value. But
yeah,
I was surprised somewhat that he was in that deal. And it just kind of seemed like a weird deal for the Knicks to make. Even though I know that they're kind of on the hunt for higher end talent.
yeah.
But I do think that Siakam thing's going to kind of come through here relatively soon, I would imagine. And then, like, there's an opportunity too, right? Kind of like have Joel kind of do some recruiting for, bring Siakam in. They have the Cameroonian connection, and
I love that.
Yeah, and so I'm sure they know each other pretty well, and so I could see that happening where, like, because you have to make the money work somewhere,
Yeah.
So that kind of seems like it could be possible. I think I would like a Siakam. I'm not, I think I would like a Siakam trade better than I would like a Zach LaVine trade. For the Sixers.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're offering, if you put two deals on the table and they're both comparable in terms of what you're giving up to get them, I lean more towards Siakam because I like the length. I like the wing scorer that he can be, where Zach LaVine is more of like a ball dominant, creative creation scorer that maybe is a detriment to the team that's here right now, because you look at what Maxi's able to do and how his game has stepped up in this year. Right, you're seeing him take steps, right? He's probably going to be an all-star this year with the way that he's playing. Even in Joel's absence, the way that he's still able to create space. Talk about his game, because his game to me is the guy, even as impressive as Embiid's play has been, the steps that Maxey has taken this year really tell me a lot about the player that you're getting because of the scorer that he is, even when Joel's not on the court.
Yeah, I think, like, even like last night, like, when you look at a game where his shooting numbers weren't nothing to write home about. I mean, there were still times in that game where he was drawing defenders to him just because he's such a threat off the dribble. Like, he's
right.
If you kind of like over rotate, he can run past you. He'll fly past you in a second. And the Kings kind of seemed a little bit like aware of that, where they were like, "Yo, we really got to keep this guy in front of us," kind of thing, even though he wasn't,
Right.
He didn't have a great game. He did have a fantastic highlight in last game.
The drive, the hang time, switch your hands, still get the ball up. I saw someone took a screenshot of, like, when the ball's in his left hand.
Yeah.
And the caption was just like, this was a 2-point. This play resulted in a score.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at him going, it's just wildly impressive to see his progression and to see the player that he's becoming.
Yeah. That was such a if that layup was such a it was such like a Jordan-esque, like, like Jordan would have those moments where he'd hit a
now you're
layup
getting
and
me in the feels.
he would be up on a layup and it felt like he was in the air forever. Like, and Maxey kind of has that little bit of that like hang time element to like his drives and
100%.
stuff. So yeah, I mean, like last night was impressive for me for him in terms of just like, hey, like he didn't have his best stuff, but he was still impacting the game in other ways, like with just by being a mere threat with your, your ability to hit the lane with speed and things like that. He seemed to like be consciously aware, or the Kings were consciously aware of him, keeping him in front of them, even when he didn't have his best stuff. And that's a testament to how good he's been this year, just in all facets. So I was happy with his game last night. On the whole, I mean, he's been great, and I would love to see him get the All-Star nod. Because he's earned it. He's been consistently very good, and All-Star nod seems like it's the right thing, for him. So
yeah, no, I love where his game's at. Talk to me about the play that you're getting, the bench play, because that's something we had kind of touched base on. You're getting the production now from Tobias Harris, like in the last 2 games, almost 35 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists a game. Let's see if that can continue, right? They're going to have games coming up Monday against the Rockets, Tuesday against the Nuggets. So you're going to get tested in Denver. You don't know if Embiid's going to play that game or not. It's trending towards not. You're seeing the bench play evolve. Talk to me about the guys on the bench that are being productive.
I think I'd be remiss not to mention him, but like there were some moments last night where like Mo Bamba had some moments coming off the bench. And
I got a stat for you when you're done.
Oh, okay, cool. Bamba was, who's always been one of those players where he'll have nights where you're like, man, if this guy ever put it together, he'd be an all-star. And then there's other nights where you're like, I think the G League would be a better fit for you, Bob, like kind of thing.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Like he has that, like they talked about it in the middle of the game last night. They talked about like his game last year with Orlando when I think he had like 7 threes against the Sixers.
Yeah.
And then you've got games earlier this season where you're right. He looks like he'd be better off playing for the Blue Coats.
Yeah. And, but last night was one of those all-star caliber Mo Bamba moments.
Yeah.
But,
and here's the stat line, right? 11 points, 4 blocks. He's 2 of 2 from 3. Like he had himself a night. Like coming off the bench, it was just the production. You got some decent production from Paul Reed. You got 8 points, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, 3 blocks. And what's wild is like their combined stat line doesn't even touch Embiid. But
no.
but you got some impressive bench production.
Yeah, and with Joel out, I mean, like being able to stagger those two and their minutes and whereas like they can kind of offer something a little bit different when each of them is on the floor. You certainly don't want both of them on the floor at the same time, but it's having their minutes staggered where like maybe you can get by with it for a little while. And if that can kind of keep up over, because I would think that like that should earn even that should earn Bamba some more time, at least in an effort like that last night in a game that they needed to have. I mean, like they were on a 3-game slide before that, but when you consider that, like it's good for right now. It's a makeshift thing, but it's good for right now. And in the middle of January when your star center's out, you're happy with it. and it's good to see guys step up that way, and take advantage of the playing time, because they're going to need it. And yeah, so I mean that's been, I was impressed with that, and last night, and I was like, whoa, like watching Bamba, get up on blocks, hit the 2 threes. I mean, it was fun, and so like, and there go, like, it's a testament again to that kind of depth thing, and but I mean, once again, like Marcus Morris got a key to the city this week, and all the boys came out for it. That was cool.
Yeah, I love that, and I love his quote about, whenever he gets announced, he's always announced as this kid from North Philly.
Yeah,
Like, it's just, it's always cool when those guys come home.
yeah,
And and to see him, kind of come full circle, from his time, playing high school ball here,
Mhm.
just, but to also see the team, see
Right.
the team come out, and to see that culture of playing together. I can only imagine is attributed to, a guy like Pat Beverly, a guy,
Mhm.
a glue guy, a culture guy that is really just, we had talked about a couple episodes ago about how, his quote about, I wish I had played my whole career here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he's a guy that wouldn't surprise me that, like, he ends up like as a host on WIP, like when his career's done. He's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna stay.
Yeah. Yeah. He's been as advertised to this
Oh
point.
God, yeah.
I'm so like thrilled with everything that he's brought, from like, the attitude and the toughness to the actual like on-court production, because he's always out there doing stuff. He's always involved.
Oh my
And
God, yeah.
I think that's a sign of a good depth player, like talking about, as we're talking about the depth and things like that. And I just mentioned Morris, like I said on previous, Drunk on the Court shows, like I like the fact that he's out there, like even if he's giving you, like even if he's playing 8 to 9 or something like that, like you usually look at the stat line and he's kind of doing stuff out there. It's not like he's just out
But
there as like a
there's
warm body.
there's also a lot of stuff that goes on the court that doesn't show up in the stats sheet.
Right, right, and I think you could probably attribute, as you said, a lot of those things to Pat Beverly being like a vocal leader, and
Yeah.
guys like that, like where they don't accept, like they don't accept it, like they're very proud pros, and I really
Oh
think
God,
that
yeah,
like
yeah.
that's great to have around a dressing room that has like a young Tyrese Maxey in it and things like that. And the kind of players as well who don't have a problem, walking up to a player the caliber of Embiid and say, hey, like, we need you to be better, man. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And, or, whatever the case is, they certainly haven't had to do that this year for Joel.
Right,
But,
right.
they seem like a group, like much like we had talked just this morning about the Flyers before this, was the Sixers also seem to be like a really good group that like they want to play for each other. And I love that. I love that for them. And I think they're still third in the East. I'm pretty sure they're still third in the East.
Yeah,
So,
they're third behind. So you got the Celtics sitting at 29-9, which is
yeah.
like really impressive. And then you got the Bucks at 26-12, and then you got the Sixers at 24-13. So
Yeah.
they're a game and a half out of the 2 spot. They're 4.5 out of the Celtics. The Celtics are just playing great. They're playing great ball.
Mhm.
And you got the Bucks. It's gonna be a good race going down the stretch.
Mhm.
But you're looking at, I think, with the way that the team is playing, you're going to settle in that 2, 3, 4 slot. You're going to be
Yeah.
somewhere in the mix at the top of the East, which is where I think the news about Daryl Morey's extension coming out, and the credibility that gives him to the team to know that he's going to be around a while, and that the roster moves that he's going to make are going to be to really put the best team around Embiid. You know, that to me is where I say, like, I like where this team is, but I don't think Morey's going to be shy about making a move to put another star, whether that's this trade deadline, with a guy like Siakam, who, you can kind of woo him while he's here to, get the potential to maybe just say, like, hey, I know you want to go test free agency, but this might be the best spot for you to win a title.
Mhm.
But it also wouldn't surprise me if they make, minor moves, back end of the bench, really try to secure that second, make sure that second team that's coming in is much better, so that when you do have to spell your guys, and then another big move is made in the offseason.
Yeah. Yeah. Like with the way the things have been reported about them as well, like it definitely seems like Morey's working the phones to add that other star. But as we've said on this show before, if you go for like high end depth here, that might actually not be a bad move either, whether it's like someone like an Alex Caruso in Chicago or something like that.
I got a couple names for you when you're done.
Okay, yeah. And it's like, yeah, a player like that where, he really doesn't need the ball to be, effective out there. And, maybe adding another piece like that, although it doesn't change the complexion of the group entirely, like adding a Levine would, for example. But, maybe that's not a bad thing either, that they don't, because things have kind of gone, maybe better than expected this year. Knowing that when they get that Harden deal done, it kind of looked like there was a lot of ancillary pieces in this thing. It was like, but I mean, like, Nick Nurse deserves a ton of credit for that. And we've said that many times. He was our guy right from the onset. You can go back in those archives and, you can't, never doubt what you hear on a Drunk on the Court. I'll tell you. We knew Nick Nurse was the guy for this job. And and so far he has been. And I think, the Morey extension, I think, was primarily earned through the way he handled the Harden thing, because that was a really difficult situation to navigate. So, I mean, he now has autonomy with the extension to know that he's going to be here, and that, he'll have even more influence, I'm sure, in terms of like what direction they decide to go with, adding more pieces here.
Yeah. But, so speaking of adding pieces, right? My guy Scotty over at DSM shared a list, a list that was put out by Josh Reynolds. But you got, I'm gonna read some names to you, and these guys are not guys that are top end of the NBA, right? They're not top 15 guys, but they're guys that are premium depth talent. So like, all right, so I'm going to give you the first three. So DeJounte Murray, and then you got Bojan Bogdanovic, and then you've got Bogdan Bogdanovic.
Okay.
You got Zach LaVine and Alex Caruso. You got Siakam and Buddy Hield. You got Kevin Huerter, Kyle Kuzma, and you got Tyus Jones.
Okay.
Is there a guy that you like out of that list? So let's take LaVine and Siakam out, and let's look at the rest of those guys and think about how they fit with this team.
Yeah. Tyus Jones is interesting. I didn't know that he was even available, to be honest, or that like his name was floating out there in rumors. Yeah, I mean he's interesting. I always liked I've always liked both Bogdanovic's, but was it Bohan was he in Atlanta? Was that the one that was in Atlanta?
I believe he is. I'm gonna look it up right now while we're sitting here just to double check. But like the Hawks are a team that'll probably make a move right now. Right now they're sitting, 13 and a half games out in the 11th spot.
The DeAndre the Murray thing, I think, is something to monitor, like because he's still kind of on the younger side, and He's always been somebody that like you always hear a lot about his like talent level. This would be, I think, if he gets dealt with this is going to be his third team
It'll be his third team, I think, in 4 years.
in 4 years, which is kind of crazy. But you know, I've always kind of been intrigued by him. I was intrigued by him when he was in San Antonio before he got to
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And in Atlanta, we're talking about Bogdan. Talking about Bogdan
yeah.
Bogdanovic.
Yeah, he was I couldn't keep them straight. I know one of them was with the Pistons.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's always been somebody that I've always kind of enjoyed watching. He's another one like where just kind of like he doesn't have any like he doesn't play with any fear or any kind of like he's kind of got a little bit of swagger to him, a little bit of attitude, and I like that about him. And he could be a second tier kind of player that he would pique my interest along with Murray and Tyus Jones, Kyle Kuzma, and these other guys. I mean, I don't really see the fit there. Kuzma drives me crazy, and I'm not even a Wizards fan or wherever it was before.
I mean, listen, he's a guy that like seems like he's always like hanging on with another guy.
Yeah,
like he's never a guy that seems to me like super moves the needle. So he's a guy that I'd be out on.
Yeah,
but the Bogdanoviches are guys that I think they're electric from the 3-point line. The more that you get space in that middle for Embiid and Maxey to operate by spreading the court, I think the better off you're going to be. And that could be a move that you could make that is not going to cost you like a lot of assets.
Right.
You're going to be able to make those moves and be able to make them without giving up a ton. Like you're going to have to give up assets, but you could be able to get one of those guys for an expiring contract.
Right.
You could be able to get those guys for that plus draft picks. It's not going to cost you a bunch of bench pieces to be able to get. So those are guys. They're the guys that are at the top of my list. A guy that you brought up, Alex Caruso, is a guy that for whatever reason in this league has been just very productive wherever he's been.
Yeah.
And Chicago is a team that's kind of reeling that could look to move on from him. The most intriguing guy outside of Siakam and Levine to me is a guy that you just talked about. DeJounte Murray is just a guy that like finishes games, killer mentality. Is I'd be excited to see what that might look like on the court with him and Maxey and Embiid. But I just wonder about the ball dominance,
right?
Because he's a guy that tends to bring the ball up. The pairing of him and Embiid on the court at the same time, or him and Maxey, in Atlanta, he is sharing the court with Trae Young. So there is something to watch there, but he's the guy to me that's the most intriguing.
Yeah.
But I think the guy that you might have to give up the most to get.
Probably. I would imagine so. Just on, I don't know do we know what his numbers look like this year? He seems like a guy that probably averages around 18 or something like that, but I'm not sure
I'm pulling up right now
what he's doing this year on like a bad Atlanta team. But
right now in this in 37 games he's averaging 21, 4 and 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Right. Okay. And then you compare them to his career statistics, right? In his career, it's 7 points above his career average. So he's his career average is about 14, 5 and 5. So his point totals are up this year, probably having his best year. A guy that I'm intrigued. That's a guy that's intriguing to me. To be able to add. I don't know what it would take to get him. You're probably talking about a guy like Jaden Springer is a guy that has come on this year and really thrived under Nick Nurse. That's probably an asset that you probably are going to move. But again, if you're trying to win a title, Jaden Springer's not the difference maker
Right.
that's moving the needle. But a guy like, if you got to bring in DeJounte Murray, you got to bring in a guy like Siakam. That's the price you got to pay for, to be able to bring a guy like that in.
I do wonder for the Sixers if how much of that is something that they're weighing right now of like, hey, we really want to add to our mix, but we don't want to take the ball out of Maxi's hands.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want that to take a significant hit. So I wonder if, I wonder about that. I wonder, I wish I could add more to Murray. I know that I've always liked his upside. I haven't really followed him much in Atlanta. I do know about him from his time in San Antonio. And I actually saw that the Spurs actually could be in the mix to bring him back as a reunion to put Wembanyama and those guys. I did read that somewhere. So yeah, they might be in on bringing him back there. But I wonder about like how much of that they're weighing. Because, I mean, like, Morey kind of plays it pretty close to the vest. Like, we don't hear a lot other than, like...
He's another guy that has kept a lot of deals under wraps, not putting a lot of stuff out in the public.
He plays it close to the vest.
Which does, I'm sure, factor in with the players when they're considering coming here.
Right.
Is that they know that stuff is not going to become public knowledge.
Right. Right. And especially today in the NBA, it's like seemingly everything is public knowledge. Like, we know so much about these guys and their situations and desires and what they, if someone doesn't, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that, like, these players also have like significant social media lives outside of this where like they're able to help kind of control their own message so they can put out things that they want the public to know about their situation. So that's a part of it too. But I'm really not at all, like, I'm certainly not against any of bringing in any of those guys. And other than like guys like Kuzma and stuff, because I mean, I don't know what's going on, and like with him and Jordan Poole in Washington and the things that they're doing out there. I mean,
oh god,
they're just they're doing whatever they want, and it's not.
Imagine being a fan in that fan base down there, and you're looking at the Redskins, Nationals, Capitals, and Wizards.
Yeah,
like, ugh. Makes me really thankful that we are where we are.
Yeah, really.
Good gracious, Mark. Anything Sixers you want to touch base on before we jump out of here?
Not really. I think the thing, as I'm sure for a lot of people, it's like my eyebrows are I'm starting to raise my eyebrows a little bit about the Embiid thing. It's like this is kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? But it's kind of not snowballing, but it's just kind of becoming more of a thing the more he's out. And it kind of seems like the team wants to downplay it, but he's been out for a little while now. So it's like, what exactly is going on there? And so I think that's like my main concern, but I do think they're going to be in on a lot of these names that we hear as players like Murray and Jones and Levine and all these guys. I'm sure the Sixers will be attached to them in some form or fashion right up to the deadline. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. But yeah, those are pretty much my final thoughts on them, because it's mostly Embiid has been my biggest concern, because he's gonna take them as far as they go.
Yeah, I think that to me, the final thought on the way out is right. The most important thing is to make sure Joel Embiid is healthy when the playoff run starts.
Yes,
that's it. Right? You can position yourself however you want to position yourself, but Embiid being healthy for that playoff stretch is paramount to anything. So if that means he's missing a whole stretch of games right now, and they got to kind of piecemeal it together with the guys that they have, I feel like they have enough talent right now to be able to kind of hold the water and stay in the top of the East and let the chips fall where they may. And this team has been able to get to the playoffs or consistently over the last couple of years. They just can't get over that second round hump. So having him healthy with the way that he is producing when he's on the floor and healthy, the only thing standing in the way is them. The only reason that they're going to lose a series is because they lost a series. And I feel like you have what you need around him right now to be able to get it done. So
Yeah,
they got to get him healthy. They got to get and you continue to build around, and you continue to increase the production of the guys on the court. And we'll keep watching. Right, the city's about to get a little quieter in terms of the sports scene because the news of I don't know if you've seen a little bit of Twitter, but the news of AJ Brown being out for this game in Tampa really doesn't make me look great in terms of my perspective for where the Birds are. So we're going to have a little bit more time to talk Sixers and Flyers because unless DeAndre Swift runs the ball, 47 times on because Jalen Hurts can't throw the ball, and you got Julio Jones and Quez Watkins and Devontae Smith on one leg. We might have some extra time on our hands. So, all right. Well, we look forward to checking in with you on our next episode when we've got more time in the sports world. So, Philly, it's been real. That's Mark. Go check Mark's stuff out. He's got a lot of great stuff on Fired Up Sports. He's got the Ramos Report coming out on Monday mornings. And I'm sure you're going to have some more time for the water cooler talk. So we'll be able to.
We do plan to have more water cooler talk episodes. So they'll be coming up here in the second half of the year and stuff. So keep an eye out for that at Water Cooler Talk on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And we'll update you there on that.
Nice. Well, Philly, have a good weekend. We'll talk to you later.
Peace.